Story 1. Overfishing and bycatch have caused a significant loss of species and populations of fish. There are species that have been so overfished that there are not enough reproducing adults left. Young fish not at reproductive age are what's being caught, and in the next few years we will see well-known fish species go extinct. Thousands of sharks are killed as bycatch daily, and larger species take so long to reproduce that they cannot keep up either. Our oceans are about to look very different. Story 2. Aquifers are being drained at completely unsustainable levels. The ones under Kansas and Atlanta are in dire straits. Many others are being contaminated by agricultural chemicals. It will be very bad by 2050. If you buy real estate, get mineral and water rights to it. Story 3. Erosion of the best arable land due to overuse of fertilizers and deep plowing. Dust bowls in China, Ukraine, and Russia. Grain prices are going to rise, affecting most food supplies. Also locally, the steamship Richard Montgomery. At some point, that ship will explode, putting more and more people in the danger zone. And Mount Etna and Campi Flegrei in Italy. Story 4. I'm not sure how much of a time bomb it is, but there are a lot of people expecting inheritances that will never materialize. With people living a really long time, entire middle-class estates are going to be wiped out by long-term care. If your parents can't afford to live in a nursing home, Medicaid will pay for it in exchange for every asset they have, leaving you with nothing. If you are young, don't count on inheriting their house because your parents will be living to 100. Story 5. The Great Salt Lake is on track to be completely dried up in about 5 years. Story 6. Histoplasmosis. I believe many of you have compared this to The Last of Us. It is a fungal infection that causes growths that resemble tumors, usually in the lungs, but in some cases it is found in the sinuses. It is caused by a fungal spore found in poultry feed that the bird ingests, then it is activated in the bird droppings. When the droppings get into the air through cleaning and transportation, the spores make it into the air supply and get breathed in by humans. Many people need partial lobes and even entire lungs removed as a result of this disease. For people with it in the sinuses, it can begin pressing on the brain when it runs out of room in the sinuses. The illness is very hard to diagnose and often looks like repeat infections, like a sinus infection or bronchitis. Usually it requires an MRI and trying different medications to make an official diagnosis. Most cases people don't get diagnosed until the growths are pretty big and usually already caused permanent damage. The infection can cause flu-like symptoms, memory loss and brain fog, expelling growths and blood when you cough or blow your nose, fatigue, weakness, and in cases where the growth presses on the brain, loss of feeling and use of the limbs. The brain fog and memory loss can also be permanent. I live in Arkansas where there are 2 major chicken companies and about a half dozen other poultry plants, and I used to live 2 blocks from one of the busiest kill plants in the United States. It used to be that only people with problems with their immune system or other serious illnesses were getting it. Now, perfectly healthy people are dying from it in our area. It used to be that we were breathing in 1,000 spores a day, but they don't even report the air quality anymore. To make things worse, they keep opening more plants in more areas to make up for our massive chicken consumption. These companies have done an aggressive job making sure that the air quality regulations are not safe, and that they don't get in trouble for making everyone sick. There are all these people walking around here with missing lungs or missing lobes, and everyone just acts like it's normal. So many people are sick and don't even know it. Some even die never knowing what made them sick. Oh, and it can be easily prevented by simply buying quality feed for the birds. Yup, that's simple. I almost died so they could save a few bucks on feed. Story 7. To give this question a very literal answer, I think everybody should be watching what's going on in Ukraine with drones and asking what we are going to be seeing on the news in the next decades. Story 8. The Kessler Effect. We have been putting all sorts of satellites and other space debris into low Earth orbit for decades without a coherent plan for how we were going to bring that material down or manage how much was up there. At some point, scientists believe the density of space junk in low Earth orbit will reach a critical mass and start a cascading chain reaction known as the Kessler syndrome or the Kessler effect. Under the right circumstances, 2 pieces of space debris, such as old satellites, could crash into each other and explode into more space debris, which crashes into other nearby debris, causing a chain reaction. This could result in high-energy space debris whizzing all over the low Earth atmosphere, destroying the satellites we depend on for much of our technology. If the Kessler effect becomes severe, low Earth orbit could become so dangerous that we would be effectively unable to use satellite technology or launch spacecraft for generations, or at the very least, satellite technologies will become much more expensive and less effective for a very long time. No one is sure exactly where the critical density lies or how bad things might realistically get. However, Donald Kessler, the NASA scientist who first recognized this problem in the 1970s, concluded that the debris field was already becoming unstable in 2009. The demand for satellite technology is only growing, so we must hope that advancements in collision avoidance technology outpace the increase in satellite density. Story 9. The collapse of the medical system and demise of proper care is tipping over, and soon it will become a situation where the rich get services and the rest do not. Story 10. I think people have an attitude of, well, COVID just happened, so we're not due for another one of those for another century. We've spent the last century building the perfect environment for pandemics. Story 11. The erosion of education, at least in the United States, is concerning. Without substantial fact-checking from viable sources, misinformation is spreading at an ever-increasing rate on social media. People are taking it as gospel because our education systems in the United States are so focused on metrics and teaching to standardized tests. Critical thinking and problem-solving are being boiled out of the curriculum. Funding is held hostage by those who test well. Tests are being created by the highest bidder. Students aren't taught to challenge their own thinking or the works of others, and are instead seeing a societal norm where anyone can spout anything and find followers who will agree. Story 12. The Cascadia subduction zone has historically experienced regular strong earthquakes every few hundred years. The Pacific Northwest is not built for earthquakes, and even a magnitude 7 would be a disaster, let alone a magnitude 8 or 9. One of these could wipe out large sections of the Pacific Northwest and cause massive casualties. Story 13. The cost of housing, at least in the United States, is affecting middle-class people as well as poor people. It is becoming unsustainable in my area and probably many other areas of the country as well. Towns that used to be known as blue-collar towns are charging rents that they used to only see in the wealthier towns. I do not know how they expect people to pay these rents or mortgages. We are going to get to the point where we need 8 people in a one-bedroom apartment to afford it. At a certain point, it is unsustainable. Story 14. Societal collapse, specifically the lack of social security. I'm writing from the United Kingdom. I'm not sure how much of this applies to the United States or elsewhere. Your experience may vary. Back in the 1970s, the United Kingdom was one of the most equal societies in the West. Many people lived in social or council housing. In the 1980s, much of the social housing stock was sold off through the right to buy, which ended housing security for many people. Then, around the end of the century, there were short-term or zero-hours contracts, eliminating employment security. Then you have the introduction of tuition fees in higher education, which broke the relationship between higher education and employment. What I'm writing about here is the long-term, premeditated breakdown of the social contract and the stripping away and removal of social security in the West. Young people today in their 20s are not stupid. They are starting to figure out that they're getting very little out of the system, certainly not enough, and they're being set up to fail. The current social and political model in places such as the United Kingdom, and I guess in the United States, is not sustainable. You have a straightforward choice between social breakdown and civil unrest, totalitarianism, and complete socioeconomic collapse. Simple question. The year is 2030. How are you going to live? What are you going to be living on? What about your children, if you have them? Story 15. Our current economic system is by itself a time bomb by design. Housing crisis, inflation, homelessness, war, high levels of debt, erosion of social security, climate change, and loss of biodiversity. It's only a matter of time before it all implodes, when companies are literally unable to increase profits, and people start rioting for food and water. Story 16. If you get dementia and need to live in a nursing home, get ready to pay $15,000 a month out of pocket. If you don't have that, you'll have to go on Medicaid. Medicaid will want you to have spent every penny you have on your own care. Any gifts given by you 5 years prior will get you a penalty, even if you and your family had no idea what was in store. The 5-year look-back didn't exist until 2006. After you die, they will take your house too if you had one. Most people can't just drop everything to provide constant care for someone with dementia, especially considering people with dementia can become aggressive and violent. There will be no more inheritances for many families who had been passing down money and homes for generations. Story 17. The impact of the pandemic on a generation of young kids has been significant. The younger they are, the worse it is. And now that the kids are back, they are behaving wildly, and the parents have given up. Having the children at home during the COVID-19 pandemic broke most of them, and many weren't great parents to begin with. There's another issue, and that's a behavioral one. No one wants to work in special education anymore because it used to have 1 or 2 behavioral kids, and the rest were developmental. Now it's the opposite. They are assigning individualized education programs to kids who are just difficult because their parents can't or won't discipline them, just to get them out of the classroom and into some extra resources so that the kids who aren't struggling don't get dragged down with them. We need to prepare, we need to change how we approach special education, and we need to figure out how to fix a generation of kids, and how to get their parents to let us help them. We need to create behavioral programs that will turn them back into well-adjusted human beings because those who are not don't fare well in the world. Even the good kids are rough compared to older generations. They have so few life skills, and the system tries to placate them enough to move them through the system. I suppose it doesn't matter. There won't be many jobs in a generation at any rate. Story 18. The United States Social Security system faces challenges. People are living longer than when the plan was first introduced, and the money paid annually in Federal Insurance Contributions Act taxes is insufficient to cover all the payouts. Additionally, the government does not save your contributions and spends them immediately on other things. It is clear that this system is due for a collapse. Either they end the program, which would be unfortunate for everyone who has paid into it their whole lives, or they increase the deficit to fund it, which will make inflation worse. Story 19. When all the hedge funds and similar entities that bought into real estate as an investment decide, whether by choice or legal mandate, to divest from that market, there will be a real estate market glut followed almost immediately by another foreclosure crisis. We fixed nothing after 2008, and the banks went straight to work building a new economic doomsday device. Story 20. Kessler syndrome is when there is too much space junk orbiting a planet to the point where it becomes dangerous to send a craft through it. It could happen to us in our lifetime. Story 21. The ever-encroaching gray ceiling in most jobs and careers throughout the world. There's an entire generation set to start leaving the workforce within the next 5 to 10 years, but continues to hold skilled jobs either due to being unwilling or unable to retire. With the millennial generation being locked out, Generation Z is largely unwilling to take the same college is the only real career choice path we were fed. Thus, there will be a massive gap in suitable replacements once these positions start to open. Many industries will be crippled by the lack of a suitable replacement workforce. This will hit all industries, including manufacturers and raw materials. It should be an interesting decade. Story 22. Mine is literally about ticking time bombs. My hometown saw some extremely heavy bombing at the end of World War II. There are thousands of unexploded bombs buried underneath houses and schools and parks that ram themselves deep into the ground without actually going off. Nobody knows how many there are. Nobody knows where they are. But every couple of weeks, one gets dug up in a construction site somewhere. Some are small 250-kilogram bombs. Some are massive 1,000-kilogram bombs. Anyway, the only thing keeping all those hidden and buried bombs from exploding is an almost 80-year-old priming mechanism, which consists of a potentially cracked glass vial and some decomposing cellulose. If the glass vial breaks, the chemicals inside dissolve the cellulose. If the cellulose breaks, a bolt drops and the bomb explodes. At least that's my understanding of the mechanism. Those rusting, decomposing buried bombs are reaching an age where they could just randomly blow up at any moment. They might even cause a chain reaction. It's best not to think too much about it. Story 23. How climate change is going to impact food security in the coming years. Increased precipitation and heat are already doing a lot of damage to crops. I fully believe we will see widespread famine within my lifetime. Story 24. Collapsing demographics. Our economic system is built around growing populations. As demographics change, our entire modern system of exchange comes under stress and will need serious overhauls, which will only happen after the consequences are dire enough to necessitate it. Demographic collapse and deglobalization, the collapse of global trade, are going to be the root causes of a myriad of horrors, yet most people will never know and will only be aware of the symptoms, not the cause. People will mention inflation, shortages in food, water, and other goods, and rising wars, etc. But ultimately, it all comes back to demographics, economics, geography, and trade. Every great empire in history thought they alone were different. They never are, and neither are we. We've lived through the rise, and now we will witness the other side of that slope.